Hello everybody, myself Jyoti, and today I'm going to start new topic from nuclear physics, that is particle accelerators. So in this lecture series particle accelerators, basically we are going to study different particle accelerators like Van de Graaff generator, cyclotron, synchrotron, betatron, and so on. But before we go into the details of these different types of particle accelerators, let us first try to understand what is the need of particle accelerators. So when we talk about astronomer, we know that for astronomer telescope is very important. When we talk about biologist, we know that microscope is very important from them. So what a telescope means to an astronomer, what a microscope means to a biologist, same way nuclear accelerators are to a nuclear physicist. So basically, when we talk about the need for an accelerator, there are two important needs. First one, to create a new particle or state of mass, we need at least an energy equals to mc square. So the meaning is, when we talk about the like suppose I want to detect electron, or I want to create an electron, so the rest mass of electron, it is equals to mc square. So if I will calculate that value comes around 0.055 mev. So if I have to create a particle with create a particle as electron, then I must have energy of the order of 0.055 mev. When I talk about proton and neutron, which has mass approximately 1836 times higher as compared to mass of electron, then obviously I will need energy approximately to 2000 times higher as compared to mass of whatever energy is required for the creating electron. So that means around 1000 mev of energy is required for a state of mass of proton. So that is what the significance of an accelerator is. To create a new particle with certain mass, you need to have an accelerator approximately having energy equal to E equals to mc square. Second important use is, high energies are also necessary for studying the structure of nuclear system. Now, whenever we try to understand the different properties of nucleus or try to understand the structure of nucleus, in that case, the we generally use a projectile, a particle with high energy that is incident on that particular nucleus. And this particular nucleus, which we are using as a projectile, or a particle which we are using as a projectile, that should have enough energy so that it will penetrate the nucleus. Okay, because every nucleus has a high binding energy. So suppose I take the example of a copper. I want to hit the copper. I want to understand the structure of copper nucleus. Then I will need, suppose I will bombard proton of certain energy on this copper target or copper nucleus. In that case, this proton which I am using as a projectile or an incident particle, that should have a very high energy. So whenever you need to understand the nuclear system, structure of a nuclear system, different properties of nuclear system, in that case you need highly energetic particle, and these highly energetic particles are produced in particle accelerator. Now how do we do this? So or how basically how this state of mass is created, or whatever is the particle accelerator, we will see that. See, when we talk about the reduced de Broglie wavelength of a particle with momentum p, it is given by lambda cross equals to h cross by p. All of must be aware about the de Broglie relation. It is lambda is equals to h by p. Here I have divided lambda and h both the sides by 2 pi. So lambda by 2 pi, basically that is lambda cross, h by 2 pi, that is h cross. So here this lambda cross, it is referred to as a reduced wavelength, reduced de Broglie wavelength. Now, when we study optics, we know that to see the structure in detail of an object with linear dimensions d, we must use a wavelength comparable to or smaller than d. So here, lambda, whatever in optics, whatever is the wavelength of the light, that should be comparable with the object which we want to study in detail. So here p should be greater than or equal to h cross by lambda. So instead of lambda, I will write down d. So momentum, it is greater than or equal to h cross by d. Now it is clear that to see the details of very small objects like nuclear particles, high momenta and thus high energies are needed. because when we talk about nucleus, we know that the nuclear diameter, it is of the order of 10 raised to minus 15 meter, or 1 Fermi meter. And when we use protons as probe, it is easy to calculate the kinetic energy required to see the linear dimensions of 1 Fermi meter. And suppose I keep here, I calculate P is equals to h cross by d. We know that h cross, it is h upon 2 pi, and d, it is 10 raised to minus 15 meters. So if I substitute these values, I will get the value of P. And we know that kinetic energy E, it is given by P square upon 2m. So if I substitute the value of P, I can find out the value of energy E. And that energy E, it comes around 20 MeV. So if I want to study a nucleus and I'm taking protons as a probe, protons as an incident particle, in that case, I need the energy, that energy of that proton, it should be equal to 20 MeV. Obviously, we do not have naturally produced beam of proton with such high energy, and the proton beam with this much amount of energy, it needs to be produced artificially. So today we have accelerators producing beams of charged particles with energies ranging from few MeV to giant machines giving a few hundred giga electron volt, 10 raised to 9 electron volt. And intensities can be as high as 10 raised to 16 particles per second. So this was about need for a particle accelerator. And just look at this picture carefully, and when you look at this picture carefully, you will understand that this picture is related to electrostatics, right? So here a person, he's touching a surface, and when he touches that surface, his hair stands. All of you must be aware about this. Okay, so let us consider the first particle accelerator, Van de Graaff generator. So this Van de Graaff generator is a popular tool for teaching the principle of electrostatics, and others just call it that thing that makes your hair stand on end. So American physicist Robert Van de Graaff began developing the high voltage electrostatic generator in 1930, and they started out relatively small and got much bigger. One made in 1933 measured 40 feet high, and it was able to generate 5 million volts. And that generator now it is kept at Museum of Science in Boston, Massachusetts. So Van de Graaff, basically he wanted to provide scientists a way of accelerating particles for atomic research, because when you have to study atomic physics or nuclear physics, you need highly accelerated particles with high momenta and high energy. So Van de Graaff wanted to provide this highly accelerating particles through his Van de Graaff generator. But his device has become familiar to a much wider audience as a means of demonstrating many of the principles of electrostatics rather than as a particle accelerator. So this is how the Van de Graaff generator looks like. So here we have two rollers, these blue balls, they are rollers. Here there is a motor which provides the charge. Here you can see that there is one kind of a brush over here. There is another brush which is kept at the lower end, and there is an insulating belt. This belt which you can see around the two rollers, that is an insulating belt. And here this is a discharge tube, the gray one, it is a discharge tube. And when the charge it is accumulated on the surface of this glass, it is transferred to this discharge tube through a spark. So how this Van de Graaff generator works? So basically there is a motor at the bottom. You have to activate that motor and the power the lower of two rollers. We have two rollers, two blue balls. So the lower roller, you have to activate that using the motor. The rotating roller causes a belt to circulate between it and second roller positioned above it, like this. There is a belt. So here there is a motor, and we have a lower roller here, and when you start the power, the belt, insulating belt, it starts rolling over here. Now the lower roller and the motor are in a metal box, as is a metal brush located close to the lower roller and connected electrically to the box. So here there is a lower brush here, and The second brush positioned with its teeth, it is over here on the upper roller. So facing the top of the upper roller and enclosed with that roller in a hollow metal sphere is similarly linked to its encasement. Here you can see this hollow metal. So, okay. So note that the charge on the metal sphere of the generator will remain constant when the motor is off. But when it is turned on, it will continue building up electrons until the discharge point is reached or the motor is halt, and then you can just transfer that charge through a discharge tube. Now, what makes Van de Graaff generator work? So basically here the system, it is made in such a way that the two rollers and the belt that circulates between them, they are made up of different kinds of materials. This means they are not equally likely to develop a particular charge when in contact with another material. So the example which we have taken, in that case the lower roller is covered in a material that tends to lose positive charge. So and when it comes into contact with another material which it is belt, and that belt, it is made up of an insulating material, and the upper roller, it is neutral metal. So as the lower roller comes into contact with and then is pulled apart from the rotating belt, a charge imbalance arises as positive charge from the roller are captured by the belt, and the roller develops a negative charge, and then the belt develops a positive charge. So this is how the Van de Graaff generator works. We are not very much interested into Van de Graaff generator. It is just you should know about it. We are going to take cyclotron, synchrotron and betatron in detail. So in the next lecture, I will tell you about the cyclotron. Thank you. Thank you so much.